others, and they're the ones we should really, really pay attention to, because, as you said, once you get to be a certain age, and you know, many times they know they're going to die, and why else would they say these things? There's nothing for them to personally gain other than to relieve their conscience. And anytime we can listen to the old-timers, I think we ought to really, consider it, and consider it very seriously.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you have some astronauts that landed on the moon supposedly, say that, oh, over there's other spacecraft. Wow, it's really big. It's huge. Mm-hmm. It makes you wonder, okay, but then, you know what? It gets whitewashed to nothing where, that means the American public, just pass it off as nothing.
I know we've written about it rather recently, but there is a lady who many years ago worked for NASA, and she was an artist, a very good one, but she would also be used to airbrush things out of the moonshots so that people couldn't see, what was actually really there. But when you look at some of these photos that she has retouched or other people have retouched, you can tell that they've been airbrushed. And years ago, when I did illustrations for newspapers, I learned about airbrushing, and you kind of can see the fingerprint of it. In fact, you don't even have to be an expert to see that something has been manipulated.
Oh, yeah, you're so true. I mean, I got back, maybe 10 years ago looking at, NASA would put pictures up of Mars. They would put pictures up of the moon and what have you, and occasionally you see something in the picture, right? And you go, wow, that shouldn't be there. So you kind of mark it on your computer to go back to it, the next day when you got the right software, you can, download it and look at it, right? And all of a sudden, either it's gone or what you thought you saw is no longer there. It's been changed.
Anybody who's interested in what you're just saying right now, the very first article that I talked about, it's at the top of the list on our homepage. It's the one about volcanoes help Nazis build secret base. At the very end of that, you can click on it just says click here. And when you click on it, it'll take you to an article that we did a number of years ago. And we give people the coordinates so they can find these two entrances that go into the interior of Antarctica. And if you read that real carefully all the way through, you'll find, we explain how at least one of those was wiped out eventually. I mean, it was like somebody put India ink down, and you can only still find it by the, tracking other marks on the ground. But I've got the original pictures from Google Earth, and they're very large entrances into Antarctica, big enough that a 747 jet could, fly into it or coast into it. And then if you read the whole article through, you realize how the government's tried to make it so people can't find it again.
Well, maybe that's why all these important scientists and politicians and people of power have been going to Antarctica. I mean, maybe, like I said earlier, something is going on, and maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I don't know. It's just. But
they don't want us to know about it, and these entrances, in my opinion, must still be in use because they don't want anybody catching things coming in and out of it. That has to be the reason for covering it up. And on one of these pictures, I direct people to keep zeroing in on it. And when you do, in the midst of all this black India ink that's wiped it out, suddenly, way deep, it pops up opening 2, a little tiny square, and it says opening 2. So even though you can't follow it anymore, if you go deep enough, you can still see that they've got it marked on Google Earth.
Yeah, boy, it makes you wonder. I wonder, too, I mean, back then, I know Germany didn't have the technology to make underground, cities or bases like that without major help. So they had to have help by, well, I hate to say it, I don't think anybody on our Earth could have helped him at that time to create an underground base. It had to be, well, somebody from out there.
According to Tompkins, the reptilians had three really humongous caverns beneath Antarctica, and the Germans had two smaller ones that are about the tenth the size of what the reptilians had. But, they were guided to it by the reptilians.
I just wonder, though, if they were being helped by an alien race. I wonder why they wouldn't help them win the war. That's the only question that it sticks in my mind.
The more I research this, they really didn't lose the war. They're still controlling things. There's a story. I'll give you a story that we posted quite some time ago, and it was. I'm going to have to dig into my brain here. You may be familiar with William Pollock. Does that name ring bells with you?
Yes, it does.
He was involved with doing security for Air Force One, for doing the security ring around Area 51, and he relates a meeting that they had, and it was not at Area 51. It was at Tonopah, which is a more remote than Area 51, or less known. And somebody important was coming in, and they all had to come to report whatever they were doing. And this plane pulled up as close as possible to the entrance to this building where they were having the meeting. A man got out, and he was dressed in what was described as like high German. He spoke with a high German accent. He wore the European-type suit with the fancy leather shoes. He went into the meeting, sat in the back, just listened to what everybody said. I guess he spoke briefly enough so that they know he spoke with a high German accent, and then he left the meeting and got on the plane, which had delivered him to the door, and he took off. And William Pollock believed very much that the Nazis were very much behind the scenes in what's going on in this country. So maybe they didn't lose the big war.
Yeah, well, maybe we did.
Maybe World War II was just a battle that they lost.
Yeah, they lost the battle, but maybe conquered the world.
Very much so. And we've heard for years about Project Paperclip, and that was bringing over their high technical people to this country because we all wanted to have more technology than the Russians had. And so it was like trying to get bidding on the most competent people. But there was a different twist on that, and that was part of an effort to infiltrate our systems. It wasn't the other way around. So at the time, we Americans think we're being so smart getting these people in here. They were coming in as spies or manipulators to get things to go the way they wanted to. You have to wonder.
Yeah, well, you consider, some of the people in this country, before actually war broke out with Germany and the United States, well, we're supporting the Nazi realm big time, financially, big time. And that makes you wonder, people that much power, why would they be doing it unless they had something, they could be guaranteed back out of it?
If anybody wants to find out about that story with William Pollock, his last name, I believe, is Pawlec, and if you type that into the search bar on our homepage, you just might be able to get to it. That article, and again, this is going back a number of years, but that article was divided into three parts, and it's the last of the three segments that talks about the German.
Yeah, I still think it's scary whatever is going on. I mean, again, with the missing people, the government kind of coming out a little bit out of the closet, and then kind of still leaving, everybody hanging. I hate it when, just like if you tell somebody something only halfway it gets them really, wondering, and it stresses them out. And maybe that's what they're trying to do, is confuse the American population even more. I mean, I don't know. It just frustrates me.
I mean, it's been pretty convincing that the Russians did that with our election, not only just to create false information to push things toward one person over the other. They're also trying to simply divide us and getting us fighting at each other. Because if the enemy is divided from inside, then they can be defeated more easily.
Well, what you hear in the news, what you hear from the government, I am warning people right now, and this is going to deviate from what we're talking about. I was reading an article this morning from CNN. They said that we are very close to going back into a recession with the interest.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
Yeah, and it's going to be worse than the other, and it's going to be, again, about the home and all this stuff, because the house values are going up so high, the interest rate's going up so high. The average person and family can't afford to go buy a new house unless they sign their, blood away. And, it can't, the bubble is going to pop. But they're trying to make everybody feel like the economy's good. And the other issue that came out today is a lot of people don't realize that the tax break you got for your paycheck. So you're bringing home an extra $19 to like $100 a month, or a paycheck, I should say, right? You're happy. You got more money, right? Wait till you file your taxes next year. Instead of getting any money back, you might be owing quite a bit. And you know what? Do you think the government's going to care if you owe money? They're going to come after you. So, I mean, just think about that. They give you a cracker, right? And then they're going to expect your car back in return.
I hear you. But at the same time, even though we're getting kind of on the creepy side of humanity, there are still a lot of good people. There's still hope. And we have to fuel that as much as we can.
Well, I hope they come and step forward. Now, for the last 3 minutes here, the Earth wobble, anything more on that? And the magnetic field, anything going on more with that? Is it?
Other than what we talked about before, I really don't have anything to add to that.
Yeah, that really still has me concerned that the magnetic field is moving so much. It's not moving inches anymore. It's moving a lot. And then, the Earth wobble, I know from what I've been reading, it can correct itself and go in and out of wobble off and on. But I mean, I really feel like we're destroying our own planet. And last night I did say this, Mary, I was reading an article. Scientists got this great idea how to, make Mars livable. And their idea was, the ice caps.
Right.
They wanted to nuke them. Some scientists, approached our government and said, hey, look, if we nuke the ice caps, okay, the ice is going to melt. It's going to form rivers, lakes, and an ocean. Then there was another group of scientists that said, wait a minute. The atmosphere is so thin on Mars, if you fired and did a nuclear blast on the ice caps, that any water would melt from it, would evaporate and go out in space. Then you had this other camp of some scientists saying, wait a minute, guys, did you look at this? If you nuke the ice caps on Mars, the water will be no good. It'll be irradiated. It'll be full of radiation. So no life or nothing is going to,
And scientists are supposed to be so smart, right?
Oh, take your door. I mean, which one do you want to believe? I mean, everybody comes up with these little ideas. What they need right now to figure out if an asteroid comes and it's going to hit Earth, how they can deflect it realistically. They need to spend more money on stuff like that and then not worry about, hey, let's go try, making Mars livable, or send people on Mars that they're going to die. They're being sent there on a death, mission, or suicidal mission, I should say. Or putting people even on the moon right now. They should be spending the money on worrying about our own fannies on our own planet.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, we need to fix ourselves up and fix this planet up, and this is what we got. We better take care of it. We're doing a crappy job of it.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Mary, it went really fast. I do appreciate you coming on. If you can give everybody your, web address again and all that stuff, I'd be really happy. And I'm sure